If you have a Kontakt instrument that you're working on at the moment and you want to make it a little more personal, a little more you, these videos are going to be for you. Hi, my name is Steve, composer, engineer and lecturer, and welcome back to the channel. I've been looking forward to this particular series because it's something that it took me a long time to sort of discover, and also it's something that you can build your own flavor to. There's no right answer. There's a few little things you need to know, and then it's your creative expression. Half the joy of our line of work, really. Today we're creating custom graphics for Kontakt, a sample instrument. If you're building a sample instrument inside Kontakt, then you might want to design a graphic user interface that has quick access to easy controls. It's also a way of being able to provide something a little more you. You get to design it how you want it to look. It's really powerful as just a means of being able to quickly access certain controls, but also as a way of being able to impart a little bit of a flavor of what to expect this instrument to sound like. This is part 1 of 3. We are going to be making 3 videos to document this process. The first one's going to take a look at how to actually create and generate the graphics and the type of graphics you might need. The second one is going to take a look at then taking those graphics and putting them into Kontakt so it can be read by your instrument. And the third one's going to take a look at then scripting that into Kontakt, into your instrument. Which is the fun part, trust me. So this is part 1, welcome. This whole thing is also documenting the graphics that I used to create Melosaur, an instrument that is now available for free. I'll link it somewhere up above, so if you're interested in checking it out and downloading it for free, by all means, please do. I'm also constantly building Kontakt instruments, hoping to release some more on the Piano Book community, a wonderful place for samplers to share their instruments. I also then tear down and tear them apart and have a look and see how they were created and show you what I did. So feel free to hit subscribe as well so you don't miss out on that. Plenty more to come, but let's get stuck in today. Okay, so a little bit of a caveat. I am not an Adobe user. I know that might upset a few people. Adobe certainly is a fantastic suite of programs. I'm just using something a little bit different. It's called Affinity Designer, and it does very much the same job as something like Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. Realistically, you can use any kind of program that creates graphics. Those are just 2 options. Today, we're not taking a look at how to use this piece of software. Affinity in particular have some amazing tutorials you can check out, and I really encourage you to if you're using that program, and I'm sure Adobe does as well for their programs. Today, we're going to really be focused on what it is you need to create for your instrument. It's a little bit different. So first things first, let's take a look at this top box here. Essentially, this top art box or artboard is the graphic interface as a whole. It's showing us sort of the mock-up of what we want it to be. I actually advise that it's often a great idea to list what sort of controls you're after on a piece of paper and maybe try and sketch out something first. You can dive in here straight away and start creating these sorts of things, but it's nice to have a little bit of planning to go in so you know what sort of things to make space for. I'm using Kontakt 6 to create this instrument. You might be using Kontakt 5 or before. There are certain advantages to Kontakt 6, one of which is that I can get a wider user interface. It now accepts up to 1,000 pixels wide, which is really good and really handy for creating this interface. The dimensions are important. You want to be creating an artboard that is 1,000 wide if you're, or up to 1,000 wide if you're using Kontakt 6. If you're using Kontakt 5, it might be a little bit different. The same for the height. There is a maximum of 750 pixels in Kontakt 6, a little bit smaller as well in Kontakt 5. I think it's only about 540. That 750 pixels is also in addition to 68 pixels that make up the header of every instrument. So in reality, your whole sort of height needs to be 818 by up to 1,000. So that's the sort of height maximum you can do and width maximum you can do. So I created an artboard. If I actually show you the guides there, you can see that I've left 68 pixels for my header, and I've left a little bit of space for my design, my custom kind of feel and groove. I like to have a little bit of artwork there. If you've seen either Melosaur or my other instrument, Metallurgic Alchemy, you'll often see little bits of little graphic design or illustrations to be able to give you a vibe or a feeling of what this might be. At the bottom here is then all of the different controls, and you can see how I've maybe used some guides to line those up as well. Okay, so essentially what I've got in here, I've got all sorts of controls for my texture, my mixing, my ADSR, filters, low and high. I've got all of my effects and a few little options as well. This consists of knobs, sliders, and switches. 3 elements within Kontakt that I needed to create some graphics for. So the first thing I did is I just laid out everything, created the mock-up so I could see what it would actually look like. Then I duplicated the board down here and just removed the knobs and faders. Essentially what I'm doing here is everything that's on this artboard is going to be my background. So this now becomes my background, and later on I'll place these knobs and sliders and switches all over the place in Kontakt later on. I'll do that by scripting. The important thing to note here as well is to work in pixels. That is because we work in pixels when we are scripting as well. Your position of where things are going to be in your background when you start coding it is all written in pixels. So it's really helpful to be able to use that straight off the bat for a 1-to-1 ratio, no adjustments, no extra sizes or anything like that. Kontakt works best when it knows exactly what's going on with its pixels. Okay. If I zoom in a little bit here, you can see that I've got some knobs that I've designed, some sliders that I've designed, and some switches that I've designed as well. These are all custom generated graphics. I designed these by using the tools that came with the program. You can see pretty much the knobs are made up entirely of a series of circles. I kind of was going for a little bit of a retro feel because this is a synth analog tape affected library. Sampled from my Polybrute behind me, some really wonderful textures. All this came together to a kind of analog-like synth, so I wanted to give a kind of bit of a heritage to that, I suppose. What I did is I just created a separate artboard over here, designed up the icons that I wanted at the heights that I wanted them, and then brought them in. That's how I created the icons. But how do you then tell Kontakt what to look for? That's the question. You may have been looking at these as you've been watching this video, wondering what these are all about. That is essentially what Kontakt needs in order to work. Now, it's worth pointing out at this stage as well that there is a program called Knobman. I didn't name it, obviously, but this program actually designs custom knobs for Kontakt. It's specific purposes for that. So if you're looking for something and you're not a graphic designer, but you're looking for something that designs custom knobs for your Kontakt instrument, this can be a great option. It works on both Windows and Mac and even has a web version in it as well. I prefer custom designing it because I get a lot more control and something unique out of it, something that Knobman wouldn't have had. So that is why I'm essentially using my own design here. I think it's a little more fun, so if you can get into this, fantastic. But if you're not ready to dive fully into this, maybe scripting in Kontakt's enough for one day, then I recommend Knobman. It's fantastic. So back to the design. The knobs are all at a set height. If I sort of dive in here in all my groups and I look at the bottom, I can see that my width and my height, my width there is 50 pixels and my height there is 45 pixels. That's important because that's the dimensions of the knob. When I look over here, what I've done is I've created an artboard that's 45 high, the same height as all of the knobs. And then I've created a long sort of section here and adjusted all of the knobs to various positions. I think I've got 29 animations all up. In doing that, what I'm creating is 29 stages that the knob can move to once in Kontakt. I call them a series of animations because that's what sort of Kontakt is looking for. Is it animated and how many of them to look for? So basically I took my 50 width, times it by 29, and that's the width of my board there, and I've spread them out. You can see I've done the same for my faders here. Quite a few more. I think I got about 51 different sizes there. So I sort of went with my middle one and then 25 steps either way. Now the number of animations that I have here isn't really that important. There's no sort of thing set in stone. Anywhere between about 20 to 50 would be a good sort of estimate. Depends on how sort of particular you want to be. The switch is something to have to remember. Now switches are a little bit different. Switches only have 6 different animations, and they need to be 6. Even if you only want it to be off and on, it has to have 6 animations. And that's because when you're developing a switch and you're assigning it in Kontakt, it needs to have an off and then an on, a mouse pressed off and on. So when you're actually holding down the mouse and clicking on it, what would those animations be? And a hover mouse off and on. So that's an off, on, in that order, followed by a pressed off and on and a hovered off and on. And you can see that I've basically had the same 2 different animations 3 times. Because I've only got an off on, I don't want to worry about what's going to happen when it hovers. I just want you to click it and it move across to the on or the off, whatever it might be. The last thing to note before we export these images and try starting to get them in, it might be an idea to make some transparent backgrounds. We're going to be exporting these as PNG files so that the background will be transparent. So you can see that I've put these brown backgrounds, the same as the background of my image would be. I've done that purely so I can see the knobs better and make sure there's no issues as I'm developing those and turning them on. And I can see that the animations look nice and going to work well. But once I'm done with that, I need to come into the knob section You can see over here all of my knob groups copied and pasted. And then there's this rectangle at the bottom. If I just simply hide that, I create a transparent background. And I would do that to all of these. Okay, once you have all of your images prepped, you need a background image and your slider, knob, and switch, depending on what you've got involved. Personal recommendation, if this is your first time doing this, and particularly if it's your first time making a sample instrument, less controls is good, less worry and concern to begin with. Maybe try just a knob to begin with, make sure that that's working, and incorporate some sliders in the next one. If you're sitting here wondering, how am I going to get this into Kontakt? How am I going to get this into my Kontakt sampler and working and attached to all my controls and everything? Stay tuned. We are going to be releasing, as I said, 2 more videos. One to look at how to now get these out of this program and into Kontakt, and the third one looking at the scripting side of things. How do we make these knobs interact in our instrument and do what we want them to do? Thanks for checking out this video. We are releasing those other 2 very soon, so make sure you do subscribe so you can catch the next part 2 and part 3 of this adventure. I am also developing a Kontakt 101 course, hoping to release that soon in the first half of this year. It's going to be completely free up on YouTube for you. So if you've never created a Kontakt instrument, or if you're watching back now and it's, July, check my YouTube channel, see if you have a Kontakt 101 course, because what that's going to mean is you can go right from the beginning of how to capture the sound all the way through to creating your own graphics and putting it all together at the end so it does everything that you're looking for. So I hope you enjoy that. Hit subscribe if you do, and if you want to see that in the future. Otherwise, catch you later.